Hello and welcome, this is Explore Game Dev, and in this video we will be revisiting Godot 4, specifically porting games from Godot 3 to Godot 4. After watching this video, you will have some key insights as to what has changed in Godot 4, plus you'll have a great list of tips and tricks for porting your own games. This is going to be fun, so let's get started. In this tutorial we're under the assumption this is your first attempt to port a game to Godot 4, so it's smart to start simple. A great example to use is one of the official Godot 2D getting started games, Dodge the Creeps. This process will give you a sense of what to watch for when porting larger games. So let's just review the game very quickly. It won't take long, it's quite simple. So you just start, you're this little player, moving around dodging these creeps and just trying to stay out of their way. The score is just the seconds you stay alive, and eventually you will be colliding with one of these and the game's over. Great, so we've seen the game in Godot 3, we've played it, we know kind of what to expect here. So let's go ahead and open this in Godot 4. So again, we're going to open this in Godot, so we select it, we'll go ahead and open it. And right away we get this warning here, and this is telling us a couple things. It's going to do some conversions, mostly like metadata, scene file stuff, to convert it to what Godot 4 expects. That's pretty much a one-way door. So when you do this exercise, make sure you have a separate copy of your project and, label it. Here I have GD4. So label it so that it's forevermore going to be your Godot 4. Once you open in Godot 4, there's no chance that you're going to open this again in Godot 3 and have it work again. So again, just remember that. And that's kind of what this warning is here. So let's go ahead and just open this, and it takes just a moment. Came to the other window, so let's slide this over. And everything looks pretty familiar. UX is a little different. Again, we're in Godot 4 Alpha 1. Okay, we should be able to open the main scene, and we can see things look a little wonky, but that's okay. We'll get to that and through this process of converting. Now we've just opened the project in Godot 4. A good thing to check at that point is to see it spoke of that conversion process. Just take a look and get a sense of what actually changed. Here I'm just in another IDE that has a good Diff view, and we see that it's pretty much, looks like images got re-imported. This WAV file got re-imported, another audio file, and there's one new file is a font import. One thing to notice here is that there's no changes to like the script files, those sorts of things, or even the scene files. That's just something to keep in mind, that it looks like that conversion process was mostly about re-importing resources. So that kind of sets our perspective when we go into this, that it's going to be up to us to do the rest of the conversion in those script files and possibly scene files. So our approach to porting this is going to be, before we even play the game or attempt to play it, let's look, because when Godot opens this project, it scans through the files, parses the script files, and looks for errors. The first thing we want to do before we even play is look for those parse errors and start to address those. We can see there are some. If we open this up, quite a few. Some of this might be sort of noise, part of that importing that we just saw. And I bet you if we go ahead and just reload the current project, let's see if those kind of just go away since we've gone through that single process of conversion. So let's pull this back over, open output again. And yeah, we see a lot of that's gone away. So now it's a much more focused list that we can start to look through. So let's just start down this list, go from the top. And it's saying essentially main screen or main scene has a script attached to it. Line 3 has an error. So let's shrink this down and go to main scene and the script. Here we are. So here we see that error, export, well, not specifically. It's saying unexpected identifier on line 3 at the first character. So it's saying, I don't know what export is. You may know my previous video we did, I'll link that here. We did a story on the annotations that have been brought into GDScript 2, part of Godot 4. So if we go ahead and look at the documentation here, we see that the keyword export has been replaced by the annotation export. So we just put a little @ symbol, and that changes how we do that. There's quite a few, it's a good read if you haven't, again, watched that video. This is a good read on all the additional sorts of things that have come in with this export annotation. Our examples, though, I think are pretty simple. So we could probably see that Okay, if I just put an @ symbol there, packed scene becomes a type hint versus this sort of paren syntax we had before, and that makes us happy. So that error has gone away. So that's one down. Let's move on to the next. So we just did this guy. C++, we ignore those. They're sort of side effects of the actual GDScript error. Those will go away. Right off the bat, it's saying I can't find a class for rigid body 2D. So if we go to that, we see that's listed here. Godot 3, that was totally valid. Something's changed. So if we look at the scene this is attached to up here at mob, if we hover that, you can see their rigid dynamic body 2D. So it looks like maybe we've had a name change. We can click the docs. If we look at this, everything looks the same as rigid body 2D. They've just added this dynamic to that. So we should be able to just copy that name, go back to the script, paste that in. That error should go away. What we can do is just do another quick project reload. Keeps popping on my other monitor. I'll just keep dragging her back. And okay, so now, yeah, those two errors are gone. Okay, so on to the next. And it looks like rand range, it doesn't like that anymore. Of course, that was valid in 3. It was a global scope, sort of quick function. You can kind of get the sense that they might be wanting to clear up the global scope, so that might not be available anymore. But it is in the main script. So if we go to the main scene, up to that script, we should see those errors called out. Here they are. Again, it says rand range is not valid. So if we go to the documentation on latest as our best chance of the docs being updated. So we could, let's find rand range. There it is. Okay, so the docs say it's still valid, but there's a good chance in these early stages, again, we're in Godot 4 alpha, so things are still changing. It's very possible the docs just haven't been updated yet. But what we do notice right away, though, is there is another way to get a random number not in global scope. So that's probably the direction they want to move using this class here. There's a quick little example of rand I range, I'm sure is for integer. I'm gonna guess there's probably a rand f for floats is what we need. So we can take this little chunk here, head back over to our needs. So we need to initialize a random number generator and replace this randomize call. We can do that easily here. As the class loads, we can create that new random number generator, replace this with a call to that class. So now we have this RNG. We should be able to replace this with RNG. Let's see if autocomplete's working. It is. So there's rand f range, and I think that's all we need. That should be good, because again, these are floats. That same thing should be able to replace this also, because that decimal, these are floats. That should be happy. Okay. That's good to go. Okay, this is great. Making really good progress. And it looks like we're just down to 1 here. Again, ignoring those C++ errors for now. Parse error yield was removed from Godot 4, so it's telling us exactly what's going on. Use await instead. So let's go to that HUD script. Here we are. Yeah, those are blaring for us. A couple of things going on here. You can see yield is sort of like a global method call that has parameters within it. Let's comment this out to give a reference for what we're going to do here. So it's saying replace with a wait keyword. So again, that's just going to be the keyword, no parentheses. But we need to await something, and it's the message timer giving the timeout signal. What has changed with signals is that they're called from who's emitting the signal, in this case, the timer. So in this case, we just do timeout. That again this line now tells us to await for the message timer to send the timeout signal. Documentation on this is a little sparse still. I think let's take a look here real quick. If we go to the GDScript reference and then search for awaiting signals, you do see it start to talk about it here. And again, here's sort of that syntax of, whereas this would have been yield with those parentheses and the parameters. Now it's just saying await for this button node to send its button up signal. So that's very similar to what we have going on over here in this case. So again, the docs will continue to improve so that we know that's exactly what to do there. Same thing would happen here. This one will just sort of transform. Await, get rid of those parentheses. Here we're like building a timer on the fly. Same thing though, so we just call timeout. So now this is saying await this on the fly created timer to call its timeout. So now those two lines should be fine. So again, for reference here, we switched from yield with having parameters in it, the string literal of what the signal name is. I think it's a little more elegant for sure. It's instructing await to wait for message timer to send the timeout signal. Okay, and it looks like we do have one other error here on player. Unexpected identifier right at the beginning. I bet you that is export. And if we go over there, yeah, same thing. So an export keyword is gone, needs to be turned into an annotation, and that's a simple one. So that should fix it. Yeah, the error goes away. So that's everything we have here. So at this point, let's just save and then reload the project. And let's see how many of these parse errors come back. Our hopes is that there'll be none, and we can kind of move on to the second stage of runtime issues. Hey, it's looking good. So if we open that, no errors at all. Great job. Pat on your back. We've gotten through all those parse errors, and those are all fixed. So now it's time to actually run the game, see what sort of issues we come into there, and just start knocking those off like we did the parse errors. Parse errors taken care of. Let's just go for it and play this and see what we get. No harm, no foul. Just click play there. Let's fire up and ooh, that looks a lot different. It is running, so we've made progress. But if we compare it to the game running in 3, the start button's not there. The script, the text is there, but it's very small and misaligned. Same with the score. Also our ratio, we're portrait here and sort of landscape there. So things are going on. So let's go ahead and sort of address those. Best before we start to hop into the scenes would be to go ahead and look at project settings. So the UI is a little different here. So let's see if we can, display window. So that's there. A little bit less of it here, but I think the important parts are there. If we bring over, this is a screenshot of the 3 version. Kind of things to key in on this again when you're doing this exercise is these helpful little circular icons. It's telling us that this has been changed from the default. So we know this game changed these defaults and maybe the defaults have come back over here. We see, so we're a 480 by 720, so we can easily change that. 480 by 720. The other things that changed here is, again, what we expected. We didn't see that happening in the 4 game is the stretch mode. It should be 2D over here. It's disabled. We don't see a 2D. We see canvas items. That makes sense for what we're doing. Those are canvas items. Aspect ratio keep, and it looks like it is keep here when we chose that. Let's close that. Those should have saved. Let's play again, see what happens. Now we do have that portrait mode is what we expect. And we're getting that stretch mode we expect. We're keeping the aspect ratio as we stretch this game. I think we're good with window setup. Now we need to address the scenes that make up this UX and see what's going on there. All right, this is great progress. So, okay, so the HUD scene, here it is. Let's take a look at that. Ooh, it's a little small. Let's get that bigger. Where'd you go? There you are. Let me go ahead and hide. Let me get some real estate here. Get this as big as we can. Okay, so the guys here, they seem to be aligned. We're at the top for the score. Start button, he kind of wandered down outside the viewport for some reason. Let's just put him at center bottom. Okay, that looks good. I'm guessing he'll show up again when we play. He was just outside the viewport. Alignment, let's take a look at that. If we see over here, so things have changed for these nodes. Locale, okay, here's alignment. So vertical and alignment left is what we're seeing. We would, want that to be center. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna guess the same will happen here. So locale, alignment, center. And really that's in these early stages again with Godot 4 alpha. Documentation's not quite there yet. It's really just kind of poking around and exploring to a little extent, kind of like when you first picked up Godot 3. That's how you'll find some of these things. Still, the fonts are quite small. If we look at the reference of Godot 3, the fonts were 64. So we need to find where that is over here. Let's look. Often that was in theme overrides. And there's fonts. Oh, then below that was font size. Nice. So it looks like we're using maybe a default. We can turn on an override and set that to 64. And yes, much better. So let's go ahead and do the same thing with score. Where are you? Where are you? Theme overrides, font sizes, turn on the override to 64. I had heard a lot of changes have happened with fonts, making them much more easier to use. That was pretty easy to change the font size. We didn't have to do much mucking around, so that's good. And then button font, same thing. Theme overrides, font sizes, let's override that, and 64. And he kind of shot out the bottom there again, so let's realign him. I think in the game it was up a little, so let's just go ahead and kind of eyeball that. Good enough. Okay, let's save and then play the scene. And there we go. So that looks a lot closer to what we had before. Certainly a lot more readable. Here we go. Nice also that we're not seeing any runtime errors when we run this. Plus start and nothing happens. No, that's okay. No errors, which is interesting. The button did disappear, so it knew it was clicked, apparently. When you get this sort of symptom where, and you see this in developing games in Godot 3, you click one of those buttons, you know it's sending a signal, nothing happens. Either the signal didn't get sent or it's not being received. So let's go ahead and check on that. If we look at the start button, and node is where the signals are. And here's his pressed, and let's go ahead and see where he's attached. Okay, so now we see the connection here for the pressed event, and it's calling this function and emitting a signal. This is, of course, valid G3 syntax, but it looks like things have changed in GD4 because we're not seeing anything past here. We do see the button hide, but we don't see this happen. Start game is custom signal generated here, but again, it's not happening. We got one little clue to this again in the timers emitting signals. We saw that was a much more object-oriented sort of syntax. So if we go over to the documents, good old script reference, and let's just go ahead and search for signals. It's talking again about the button up. And here's the main signal section. So let's take a look here. We'll kind of breeze through custom signals. That still looks the same. We're talking about connecting to signals. We want to know about emitting signals. Here we go. Okay, very similar to what we have. So here a custom signal health changed has been declared in this class. And then here, again, that object-oriented sort of syntax, we're calling emit on that signal. This signal has some parameters, ours did not, so that makes it even simpler for us. So in this case, start game is again our signal, so that's like a first class object, and now we just call emit on it. Parse cannot find property emit because it only has one m. There we go. Okay, it is happy. So I think at least get us past this point. Let's go ahead and play and see what happens. Start, and again, nothing happens. So, and no errors. We can kind of verify. Let's go ahead and start. And yeah, we are getting to that point. So let's stop here and continue, see what we can figure out. We're on the HUD. We have our signal. We should, oh, here we go. So if we look in the node for this start game signal, it's not connected to anything. That shouldn't be the case. If we grab Godot 3, look at the same scene, we see that the start game is connected to new game, which is in the main script. That sounds good. So let's go ahead and replicate that on ours. Need to be in the main view. Let's do that on main. Let's connect that. So now we see that connection as we expect. Let's do, yeah, so that looks good. So that being the case, we probably should take a look for other custom signals because they're probably going to have the same issue. Let's just do a global search for signal. Oh, yes, we see start game, and then we see hit is in the same case. So, oh, and then we see, of course, the emit is wrong also, but we now know how to change that. It would just be hit.emit. So that line's fixed. And then we are in the player. If we search here, player, again, hit's not connected. If I search over here off screen on Godot 3, I see that hit is connected to game over. That makes sense. Let's do that. And again, on the main script, game over. Connect that. There's a little refresh. So now those are good. Great. So signals look good from code perspective. There's all reconnected. So let's try another play. See how this goes. Click start. Oh, I can hear the audio. You wouldn't be able to hear that, but oh, now we hit an error. This is saying non-existent function instance on packed scene. Mob scene is a packed scene. We're calling instance. It says that doesn't exist. Let me stop the game here. Okay. Gonna guess maybe another name change. If we go to the docs by sort of control or command clicking, let's see what methods are on packed scene. And it looks instantiate. Sounds a lot like instance. I'm gonna guess they just changed the name there. Where did that go? Can't instantiate. Instantiates the scene's node hierarchy. Sounds a lot like what instance used to do. I'm gonna just change that. Close that out. There you are. There we go. Instantiate. Okay, so let's play again. And again, I'm hearing the audio. And we have our enemies coming in. But I cannot move. I'm paralyzed. Good. Everything else, though, looked good. We kind of died when we thought we would. All the sound effects I'm hearing on my side are fine. And we even got score. Again, this is how many seconds you survived. And I'm able to click start again. But I'm paralyzed. So something's up there. You would think that is in the player, so let's go ahead and take a look there. Okay, paralyzed. Let's look at the player script, see what sort of movement code we have. And this looks like to be the bulk of it. Let's get a little more real estate. Okay, if you've done some tutorials on 2D movement, this is pretty normal, I was going to say. And again, no errors, so I think probably it's best at this point to look at the input mapping that you might see. So UI's again a little different here. We see the expected, we had move right, move left, move down, move up. And we have those here. If I look at the reference of the Godot 3, essentially its mapping was odd and the arrows. But I think this is again a case like with those signals. It's still there, it just kind of needs reconnected. Let's give that a try. This is kind of new, I think. I don't remember this. Event configuration. Oh, it's listening for input. And so I would say that would be an A. Looks like I recorded it. Okay, that looks better. I'm not sure what this physical was. This edit would be move left, and we'll do the left arrow. Cool. This is moving right along, so move right. I'll probably fast forward this. There we go. Cool. So everything's mapped there. Let's see if that reconnected us. All right, so let's try this again, and let's play. Start the game. Hey, we're moving. Oh, wait, what's that? We have a ghost. Something, that's weird. It gets closer. It's not like statically offset. Okay, pretty weird. We're able to start again. And yeah, still have the ghost. Okay, let's stop that. And let's kind of figure this out. I'm not the total expert on particles, which is what was going on there. And if we look at version 3, pull this over, start, it should be like a ghost trail particle right off the player. That's not what we're seeing. In these cases, that kind of seemed like a bug. If we check the player, let's go to the player scene, we should see that trail. We can check the transform, but as you saw, the distance wasn't set. It got less and more. Yeah, the transform's 0, so it should be right off the player. So off to search bugs that have been filed with Godot 4. So we want to search for this bug. The one thing you can see is this kind of has a new name, GPU Particles 2D. I would think rendering on the GPU just used to be called Particles 2D, and it was just kind of implicit that was GPU. The other was CPU Particles 2D. There is a lot of renaming going on to make those more explicit, so this makes sense here that it's now called GPU to match with that CPU. Godot made that change for us, so it's not like we're seeing the name conflict here. It renamed it for us. Let's go, if you go to the announcement page, let's pull this over so you can see it, and go to the very bottom. Sorry about that scroll storm there. Here it is, bug reports. With search existing issues is what we want to do. Here we are. Let's search on GPU particles 2D. And there's a few of them, not too bad though. So let's take color, no. Our offset. Okay, I think this is our guy. Let's go take a little closer look. And let's see, when using global coordinates, parallels spawn, that looks like, yeah, global position times 2. So that kind of, yeah, this is it. That variable kind of distance from the player makes sense here. I think what we can do is a couple things. Again, the game seems to work other than this, so we're really close. If, in the real world, this was your game, let's go back out to main. Oh no, sorry, back to player. You could do this and then you're fixed. You just sort of turn off that trail effect and, hey, we never had that, but everything's working great. The other one is, we mentioned CPU particles earlier. There is a way to convert GPU to a CPU. And for this game, GPUs are more performant. Of course, you can do more things with them. But in this case, it's a very simple effect in a simple 2D game. So it's probably fine to have a CPU particle. So we can click and change that. Godot is nice enough to convert that for you. So you should see now that, yeah, it's a CPU. The bug mentioned that it was GPU specific, so cross our fingers. Let's hope this works. And yes, yeah, so we're great. Everything is working great. And we died there just like we expect. We can start again. And again, I'm hearing all the audio here. I just didn't bother hooking that into OES. A little harder to do on a Mac. So that looks like 100%. We're getting the gameplay we saw before. Congrats. No errors. There are some warnings here. And I did look these up offline. It's saying await keyword isn't needed here because it's redundant. As far as I can tell, it is needed here because I even, that's the syntax. It's a very simple await call. I could be missing something here. So in the comments below, please, if you know what this is about and how to get this warning to go away, definitely let me know. I'm going to go ahead and ignore those. And then other than that, congrats. You've just ported your first Godot 3 game to Godot 4. Now we have Dodge the Creeps Godot 4 version. So that was great. Not too much effort. Sometimes we kind of got stuck and had to poke around stuff and see what worked and what didn't. But we did it. So lessons learned. Again, opening in Godot 4. Think of that as a one-way operation. So be doing that on a separate copy of your game. As you're porting, have Godot 3 version open, kind of a read-only as reference. Helps quite a bit. First things, fix the parse errors. That's always where you want to start, even before you really try to run the game. Some common things there were export name changes on some of the nodes, and that yield to await is going to be common. Also, the GDScript reference doc, make sure you're looking at latest is your friend in that, searching through there. We saw there's still some gaps, but those will be filled soon, I'm sure. As you get past that, project settings, the display in window is a good place to start. Then get into the UI. We had to adjust the layouts and the font again. Custom signals were kind of a special case. The syntax for emit has changed. Also for connect, if you're doing that in code, we were not in code in this game. And we had to reconnect custom signals in the scene. We saw that. When you get stuck, like on that particle, remember to search open bugs, file bugs if you find bugs. In that's my shortcut there. Godot 3, when you're looking through your scene, look for those little loop arrows that say this has been changed from default. And that essentially signifies that those changes will be in the scene file. You can look in there to compare scene files across. Do you know what's the Godot 3 one look like versus the Godot 4? Be cautious of editing those direct. You can edit them if you know what you're doing, but that's another way to check if you get stuck to kind of see, okay, what is the difference here? Just to call out, this, was a very simple game. So it did take, a little bit of effort to convert. So you can imagine a larger game could take quite a bit more effort. So keep that in mind. There's certainly going to be cases where it's best just to leave those games in Godot 3 and reserve Godot 4 for new works. So hopefully this is a nice little guide as you approach other games to kind of things to look out for. And you can probably use this as your starter, and you'll add to yours as you find more common issues that get resolved. So I'd call that a successful port to Godot 4. Thanks for joining me. I'll put a link in the description to the finalized Godot 4 files with the diff so you can see exactly what changed in those files. Really appreciate a like and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. Please leave any comments you have for questions or tips you may have on porting to Godot 4. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.